So if I just click on this melody over here, I'm going to hold Control, and I'm also going to click on this one, on this chord progression. And we have this little focus button that lets us focus in on either one of the selected clips, and then we can change the notes while still seeing the chords in the background. Hey guys, Bound to Divide here with Ableton Tips, and today we're going to be writing these two melodies in Ableton Live 11. And the second one, a more simple, slower kind of melody. Okay, so if you want the chords for this tutorial, we actually made them in our previous tutorial, which was how to make chord progression. So you can follow along with that, or you can quickly copy these chords down, but I'm not going to explain the music theory or how to write these chords. And if you want to use the same sounds as me, we'll also provide those in a format called Instrument Rack. You can download them, they'll be in the description. And then if you want to add them to the project, what you need to do is you need to go up to Instruments over here and then go to Instrument Rack. And then inside Instrument Rack, you can just go and click on any one of the racks that are there. You can just say Show in Explorer. And then it should open up the location of your instrument rack, which is in Documents, Ableton, User Library, Presets, Instruments, and Instrument Rack by default. And then you can just take the files that you've downloaded and place them in there. And then they should appear over here under Instrument Rack. And then to add them to your project, all you need to do is just create a new MIDI channel, Control-Shift-T, and then you just double click on pad or lead or whatever you want. But as we've already created the chords, I'm not going to recreate those now. So I'm just going to delete this channel. But what we are going to do is we are going to recreate the melodies. So let's make a new MIDI channel. Shortcut is Control-Shift-T for a new MIDI channel. And then we're going to highlight 8 bars over here. And we're going to hit Control-Shift-M. And I'm just going to right click inside this section here and make it narrow. It's usually set to 16ths, which is kind of hard to work with. That's why I set it to the adaptive grid. It's a bit easier to work with, bigger blocks. Okay, and then the sound we're going to be using for this is the lead, which is this saw pure muted bass, but it's been slightly adjusted and changed some parameters, added some delay to it too, and a bit of EQ. Okay, so let's get into the writing of the melody. We're going to start off with the arpeggio, and we're going to be using a method to write this melody, which is kind of like the safe way to do things if you're new to music production and you don't quite trust your ear yet. So we're going to be building our melody based on what notes our chords are using. So if I just click on this melody over here, I'm going to hold Control, and I'm also going to click on this one, on this chord progression. And we have this little focus button that lets us focus in on either one of the selected clips, and then we can change the notes while still seeing the chords in the background. Make sure you have focus selected, and then we're going to just click on our ARP so that we can see that. And I'm just quickly going to talk about this and then we'll recreate it. So here you can see the notes of our melody are landing on all the same notes that are in our chords, with a few small exceptions. And that's basically the method that we're going to be using. The reason for that is if you use these notes that are in your chords, you know that the melodies, the harmony of the melody will fit the chords perfectly. Now, you probably won't end up with like really super compelling or groundbreaking melodies using this, because it's kind of like the safe method. But if you're just starting out and you don't have a good ear for music yet, you don't really trust your ear, then this is one way you can write music that at least harmonically makes sense and sounds in key. Okay, so we're going to not look at this clip anymore. Now we're going to recreate the melody together. Let's click on our chords, hold Control and click on this new blank MIDI clip, and then make sure that focus is turned on and that we are selecting the new clip here, not the chords, the empty one. And now when I first start writing my melody, I always like to kind of think of the rhythm that I want. And so the rhythm for this one goes da 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 da. Okay, so now if we zoom in, because we've got the adaptive grid, you'll see as I zoom in, we get more lines start to appear here. and more lines as we zoom in. And we want to zoom in until we are seeing 16th notes. So how you know you've got 16th notes is that between the bar number here, between this bar 17 and 17.2, there should be 4 little lines. And then you know you're on 16ths, or you can right click and set it to 16ths. But I prefer to just stay on this adaptive grid. It's quicker for me to work like that. And then the first note we played is going to be at A here. And we're just going to make that rhythm that da, 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 da. So the first note is going to be 3/16ths long. So just double click here and make this 3/16ths. And then we repeat that note length and we repeat it again, but this time we shorten this one. So we're fitting basically 3 notes in between 17 and 7.3 here. And then I'm just going to hit Control D, Control D, Control D across there. And that's basically the rhythm of our melody. Okay, so now we can start to move those notes around and kind of build a melody. And remember what I said, we're going to be using the notes of the chord. So let's take this A note, and I'm just going to use the up key on my keyboard to move this up. So we're going A, E to A, and then this one goes E, A, da, 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 da. And it sounds a little quieter than the original, and it's going to be because this velocity is a bit low, so we can change the velocity of the notes, which basically means how hard the note is being pressed. If we just hit Control A to select all of the notes, and then we can just click and drag one of these things up, and that brings the velocity up. Let's bring it down to about 100. Okay. And now we're just going to repeat this section with a small change. So let's just delete these notes. And I'm going to select all of these and hit Control D. Now there's nothing wrong with just doing this, but in the original I made a small variation just to keep it a little bit more interesting. So what I did was I moved this A note up above the C because I just thought it would be nice to go up and down again. And you could play it completely safe by using the E up here because that's still in our chord, and as you can see there's no D in the chord, and that would probably sound fine. But I felt like it was a little bit too high, just my ear told me that it would sound nicer 1 semitone down, so we're moving it to the D, which is still in our key because we're using all the white notes. We're in A minor, so it's okay to like stray away from the chord, but generally we're going to be sticking to the notes. So this is how this sounds. And then we're going to repeat the same sort of pattern for each one of these chords. So the next one, let's do that. It's what we can do is we can just copy this whole section and then click here and paste it, and then just shift the notes onto the chord. So we can just select them and move them down, up and down, and then duplicate this out. Okay, so this is how this sounds. Okay, but now we want that. And on this one, move this note up to the B, and this one we're moving down to the A. And now there's no A inside this chord, but I know that it's a safe note to use in the key because we're in the key of A minor. So that A note is pretty much going to work with any chord in A minor just because it's such a stable note. So now this melody sounds like this.
Just a quick break before we go back to the tutorial. If you find these type of videos helpful, we can highly recommend the PML Academy with over 35 full-length online courses, spreading over topics like writing chords and melodies or arranging your songs to producing entire songs from start to finish. So check out the link in the description to see what's inside the all courses bundle exactly.
Okay, so now I think it's probably good to talk about symmetry. You'll often notice in music how sections are kind of broken down into like an A-B pattern or A-B-A-C. And what I mean by that is like this would be our A pattern, this would be our B pattern, and then we could repeat this pattern over here. So that would be A, B, A, and then we can repeat this pattern over here, which would be A, B, A, B. But we're not going to repeat it exactly. We're going to change a few notes to fit the chord. But what I do want to repeat are the last two notes of each of these patterns. So our A, B isn't coming from the chords themselves, or isn't coming from the main chunk of the melody, but rather just from that little final. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to highlight all of the notes here from our A section, and then we're going to paste them here. And then we're just going to move these notes onto our chord notes. And these top notes we're just going to leave because they're already on the keys. Okay, and let's listen to the full melody now. And now we're just going to copy this one across here. And we're going to shift this down to the G and that down to the D. And we're going to leave these notes where they are. Okay, so here's our full melody. Okay, so that's our little arpeggio melody. Next up, we're going to be making this slower melody that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So let's just bring this down again so we can see what we're doing. I want to take these two melodies and just drag them to the bottom of my arrangement so that we have this melody over here. And I'm just going to make a new MIDI channel again, Control-Shift-T. And we're going to make a new MIDI clip, Control-Shift-M. And then we're just going to right-click and set that to narrow again. And then we're going to use our lead, which you've downloaded, and I'm just going to select both of these clips now by holding Control and clicking on both of them. Make sure you double click. If your piano roll disappears, you can just double click on the MIDI clip again and then hold Control and click on both of them. Then make sure that the second one, the one that we just created, is the one that's selected, not the chords. Okay, so let's follow that same method that we used before. We need to first do that rhythm, and this rhythm goes da, 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 like that. It's a very simple and slow rhythm. So here you can see we're using quarter notes, and we know that because there's 4 notes between 17 and 18. And this first note spans 2 quarter notes, and this one is only 1 quarter note. And then we're just going to duplicate this across. Okay, so you don't have to use the exact same notes that I've used. If you think something else sounds nicer, feel free to do that. But I'm just going to basically walk up these notes here. So we're moving these ones up to the E. And it's a bit quiet, so remember our velocity is a bit low over here. Let's just select all of those and drag this up to around 100. And I think in the original one, yeah, I didn't have a note here, so I actually just deleted this one. And then I'm just going to select all of these and hit Control D so we can keep our rhythm going. And then I'm going to shift this one up here. Down, 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 up like that. And then we're going to place another note here. So here you can see it goes up and then down. These are quiet again. A quick way to also adjust the velocities is to highlight your notes, and then you can hold Alt until this little kind of up-down arrow cursor happens, and you can just click and drag up to change the velocity. Okay, so here this doesn't really sound nice to me. So I think in the original I had this down at the B, and we can do that because we can see that we actually have a B note up here at the top line over here. And we can play that B at any octave that we want. So if we just click on that and hold shift and hit the down arrow, you'll see that lands down over here. And that actually makes quite a nice movement, because we had this note, the C, playing over here, and then we briefly come down to the G, and then we go to the B. And music theory wise, this entire movement makes sense and it works nicely for two reasons. So one reason is that you got this kind of movement between the C and the B, which is the half step movement. And generally that gives off like quite a, I don't know, like a sad or melancholic vibe, which I really like. So that's one reason why I think that movement works. And another reason is that we were on the G here, and if you're building a G major chord, the second note that you would be using, or in this case it's referred to as the major third of G major, would be the B. A G major chord looks like this: G, B, D. So harmonically this makes sense, as well as it, we already have that B note in there, so we know it fits the chord. And then right at the end we go back down to this G, and the reason for that is because that will now resolve nicely if this loops back around to the A. Because the G is the seventh note in our scale, the seventh note always wants to resolve or move back to the first note, and that's called your leading tone. The seventh note in the minor scale is called the leading tone because it kind of leads you back home. So if I were to just loop this whole section, just clicking on the clip and hitting Control L, and if we just play from the end here, you can hear how that loops back around to the A quite nicely. It's quite a nice resolution. Okay, let's listen to our full melody now. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to take a deeper dive into harmony and melody writing, you can check out the courses below in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.